The bathroom debate looks like a recent culture war invention. But sex-separated public toilets arrived in the United States and Europe less than 2 centuries ago, and the justifications offered at the time bear almost no resemblance to the arguments made today. Walk into most public buildings in the Western world and you'll find 2 doors. One marked for men, one for women. The split feels permanent, obvious, maybe even biological. Supporters of strict separation cite safety, privacy, and the psychological comfort of cisgender users. Opponents point to harassment risks for transgender people and the logistical burden placed on parents, caregivers, and people with disabilities. Both sides treat the divided restroom as though it has always existed. It has not. For most of human history, public sanitation meant chamber pots emptied into streets, communal latrines with no partitions, and open cesspits shared by entire neighborhoods. Privacy was a luxury afforded by wealth, not by law. In ancient Rome, multi-seat public latrines lined the walls of bathhouses and forums, with no barriers between users and no distinction by sex. Medieval European cities relied on garderobe chutes that dropped waste into moats or rivers. The notion that strangers of different sexes could not share the same sanitation space simply did not exist as a cultural or legal boundary. The first laws mandating sex-separated toilets appeared in the United States in the 1880s, not in response to public demand for safety, but as part of a broader campaign to keep women out of factories. These statutes were called industrial exclusion laws. They required employers to provide separate toilet facilities for female workers, and because most factories could not or would not pay for the additional construction, the laws functioned as de facto bans on hiring women. Legislators framed the measures as protective, arguing that women belonged in the private domestic sphere and that their presence in public industrial spaces violated natural order. The separate spheres doctrine held that men were suited to politics, commerce, and public life, while women were suited to home, family, and moral guardianship. Scholars remain divided on whether an informal custom of sex segregation existed before these laws, or whether the laws themselves created the custom. Some historians argue that Victorian concerns about modesty and propriety drove an earlier, unwritten convention. Others point out that no such convention appears in the architectural or regulatory record until state legislatures began passing factory codes. What the record does show is this: the earliest statutes enshrining sex separation were deeply rooted in the separate spheres movement, and they were used as tools to limit women's participation in paid labor. By the early 20th century, as women's suffrage gained traction and more women entered the workforce, the justification for separated toilets shifted. Lawmakers and public health reformers began to emphasize hygiene, safety, and the prevention of sexual impropriety. The language of exclusion softened into the language of protection. The infrastructure, however, remained expensive and unevenly distributed. Working-class women in urban tenements often had no private toilets at all, while middle-class department stores installed lavish lounges with attendants, mirrors, and seating. The legal requirement for separation did not guarantee access. It guaranteed a costly architectural standard that many employers and municipalities refused to meet. Unisex public toilets, by contrast, were not invented as a progressive reform. They were the default condition in settings where cost or space made separation impractical. Rural gas stations, single-stall restrooms in small businesses, aircraft lavatories, and portable units at outdoor events. No one called them unisex, they were simply toilets. The term itself, along with variants like gender-neutral and all-gender, did not enter widespread use until advocacy groups began pushing for inclusive design in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The modern resurgence of sex-separated toilet legislation, commonly known as bathroom bills, began in earnest after a 2013 ruling in Colorado. The state's Civil Rights Division sided with the family of Coy Mathis, a 6-year-old transgender girl, allowing her to use the girls' restroom at her elementary school in Fountain, Colorado. The case was documented in the film Growing Up Coy and has been credited with sparking a wave of legislative responses across the United States. In 2016, the U.S. Departments of Justice and Education issued guidance requiring schools that receive federal funding to treat a student's gender identity as their sex for purposes including bathroom access. That guidance was revoked by the Trump administration in 2017. Proponents of bathroom bills argue that restricting access by sex assigned at birth is necessary to prevent voyeurism, assault, and rape, and to maintain the privacy and psychological comfort of cisgender users. Critics, including the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, argue that such legislation does not improve safety and may increase risks for transgender and gender non-conforming people. Research conducted by the UCLA Williams Institute tracked crime rates in bathrooms before and after the passage of protections for transgender individuals and found no significant change in the number of reported incidents. Vox and Media Matters confirmed with officials in 12 states and 17 school districts that enacting non-discrimination policies did not lead to increases in sex crimes in bathrooms or locker rooms. The architectural and regulatory landscape today is fragmented. Some jurisdictions mandate single-sex facilities. Others require or encourage the addition of all-gender options. Multi-user unisex toilets, where individuals occupy private stalls but share sinks in a common area, exist in airports, universities, and new commercial buildings, but remain uncommon in older infrastructure. Single-occupancy unisex restrooms are widely accepted and rarely controversial, yet building codes and cost considerations mean they are not universally available. The same infrastructure questions that shaped the original laws in the 1880s, questions of expense, capacity, and competing access needs, still shape the debate. What has changed is the framing. The 19th century argument was that women did not belong in public at all. The 21st century argument is about which women belong in which public space. The shift reflects broader transformations in labor law, civil rights protections, and the visibility of transgender people. But the mechanism, legal mandates about who may use which door, remains structurally identical to the factory exclusion statutes that created sex-separated toilets in the first place. The safety argument is recent. The privacy argument is recent. The idea that psychological comfort depends on segregation by sex is recent. None of these justifications appear in the original legislative record. What does appear is the language of separate spheres, the belief that women's presence in public spaces threatened social order and required regulatory containment. The doors were always about control, not protection. Today, unisex public toilets are used by people of any sex or gender identity. They can reduce wait times by balancing occupancy across a single queue rather than maintaining two separate lines of unequal length. They benefit parents assisting young children, caregivers helping elderly or disabled individuals, and anyone who needs help from someone of another gender. They also benefit transgender people and those outside the gender binary, who face harassment, violence, and the risk of arrest when forced to choose between doors that do not reflect their identity. The modern battlefield is not about plumbing. It is about who counts as a legitimate user of public space and who decides. The toilet is a proxy. It always has been. In the 1880s, the proxy was used to justify excluding women from factories. In the 2010s and 2020s, it is used to justify excluding transgender people from schools, government buildings, and commercial facilities. The architecture has not changed. The justification has simply been rewritten to fit the political moment. The earliest sex-separated toilets were not designed to make women safer. They were designed to make it harder for women to work. The doors were a barrier, not a refuge. And every argument about privacy, modesty, and protection was layered on afterward, long after the laws were already written. The bathroom was never neutral ground. It was always a battlefield, drawn by people who believed that some bodies did not belong in public at all. What survives today is the infrastructure of exclusion and the language of care. The combination makes it nearly impossible to argue against separation without appearing to argue against safety. But safety was never the original purpose. The purpose was control. The doors still do that work. We have simply learned to call it something else.